Hey, everybody. Concord School Board's meeting of the Capital Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee. So in attendance tonight at this meeting are members of both committees. I believe every committee member is here, yes? Yes. Nice. So a couple of us serve on both committees. So we have Brenda Hastings, Pam Walsh, Bob Cotton, Jonathan Weinberg, and myself, Barbara Higgins. So I'm gonna hand it on over to whichever fine gentleman. Oh, Tom Croto, how did I miss you?
I was hiding.
And also Mr. President.
And Jim Richards is here as well. He's not on either of these committees. So now I'll hand it over to whoever's in charge.
Okay.
And I apologize publicly, profusely to Tom for not seeing
Oh,
him.
apology accepted.
All right, I'll start off. So there are your committee members. I'm going to just back up one slide and, sorry, there we go. So for tonight on the public agenda, we'll just have a quick overview of the Memorial Field discussion. I believe you had that at the monthly board meeting. I was just going to reiterate that, see if you had any questions, and just highlight a excerpt from the joint facility use agreement. And then we'll talk about the RMS location and some preliminary financing plans, which you have 2 copies in front of you, each 2 different plans that I'll go over. Then we'll talk about a preliminary construction timeline process. This one assumes that we're not getting building aid for this upcoming biannual, so my hope is diminishing on that. So we've started to plan for the next one. And then just a quick little note about BMS and CHS HVAC. We're just going to have a quick discussion. We'll have more in the future. A lot of the stuff is heads up, no particular vote unless there's something you want to take action on, just kind of what we're working through. And then a future meeting in July that we'll talk about. And then we'll go into non-public. I've scheduled your attorney as relates to your gas station appeal for 6:15 via Zoom. So we'll try to move along, and if we need to come back, we'll come back, okay? So I will go into Memorial Field. So in the joint facility use agreements, which is dated back to 2001, are 2 particular provisions, because I don't know if this was talked about at the monthly board meeting. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. But I wanted to just highlight that, you know, all in all, the city and the school district do work together, definitely at all our levels. And this has always been something that's there, as Memorial Field is a project that's in excess of $10,000. It raises to the discussion of, you know, do we have a joint effort to do that? And as you've started to hear in the paper and here, we need to do something about that. We did have Mr. Mello texted us a nice big puddle to me and Kathleen, and I texted him back a sub pump.
Sometimes
So.
ducks swim in the puddles. You'll
I
see
don't know what
ducks in the puddles.
I didn't know what he thought I was going to do. I tried to help, but that was the only thing I could think of.
No,
So-
quite frankly, we put a water polo team into the budget.
Yeah, right. No, this is not a new problem.
No.
When I was pregnant with Gracie, which was 2001, that was the duck year. It was like almost waist deep, this one puddle.
But I won't get into too many of them. I just wanted to highlight the capital improvements, specifically number 1, as it relates to something more than 10,000. But you know, both sides are looking at that, and probably this process will take over the next 6 months to a year. And I think in the next slide, I have the bullets that were sent over by.
Yep.
I know you may have already reviewed those at the monthly board meeting. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's something that's at the forefront right now, and we noticed that the paper is covering it, and it's a good community thing, and hopefully there'll be something that we'll be able to work towards in the next 6-9 months here. Okay? Yeah.
Read in the paper just that the city is starting its budgeting process for all this, and that this is going to come up for discussion. Is there a plan, or should there be a plan for the school board or somebody from the district to come and speak at the sessions for this?
Well, I thought about that because
Yeah.
I think our presence would be helpful. I did send a letter with the to the city indicating your vote to support the payment of $70,950, I think it was. Last Thursday night, Mr. Richards and I were at a meeting with the mayor, and he indicated that their portion was going to be in the budget. It's in the budget now. Obviously, it has to be deliberated on, but I agree, Bob. If we were present when that comes up, I think it would be a message to the community that we're working and standing together on this project.
What's the date of it?
Well, I don't know yet. Jack and I are working with Tom, the city manager, to be able to set up a meeting. So they haven't been able to get a date back to us. So as soon as we get that, we'll get it back to you.
If
I'll
there's
have
a hearing on that, we'll let you know
Yeah,
prior.
as soon as we get it.
I know they're announcing something, so, okay. That's all I wanted to do, I didn't want to get too much into it, but just so you, I just reinforce, well, that issue, because it's going to be a big ticket item. RMS location status and preliminary financing plan. So I just wanted to go back to some of the goals that we had set up, and this was based on the meeting from May 5th. We had put together a slide for the community meeting, listing some of the criteria that we looked at when we looked at the existing site. I think as we talked about from the beginning of this, the default would be the Runlet Middle School site. Once the Clinton Street property fell through, that is still kind of sitting as the default, but we're going to need you to vote on that, and you're going to see that in your construction line on where you want to put the school. Obviously, we have something else in the fire that hopefully publicly you'll talk about that soon as we have clarification on some things. But we just wanted to reiterate those goals, and if there was anything you saw in there that you didn't agree with or wanted to change, because, you know, it's a year and it's a whole different board now. You have new members, and some people may not even be aware. So we just wanted to highlight this again, of kind of, if something does come up, this is kind of what we benchmark against to see, does this fit and is this worth pursuing? Okay? Again, more informational and just your feedback, and this is posted also in the capital facilities folder and in the finance folder, and it'll be on the web in the morning when Karen gets in. I move on to now preliminary financing plan. Okay, so in front of you, where are those extras? Do you have them?
Do you need it?
I think I got it. You have two different plans in front of you, and this is more for explanation. I'm going to tell you what I did, because my plan, unless you have opposition, is to try to submit it to our legislative friends as a solution to try to get more building aid funding. It might be a little late in the game, but you know what? I thought I'd at least try. So the first one I'm going to show you is labeled up at the top, 30-year EP, 176 million. Okay? That stands for equal principal. So in FY24, which is the fiscal year you're going to go into, our current debt that we're counting against as existing capital debt is the $2,020,000. We show nothing else. Okay? C through F, if you look at the columns labeled above. And in column G is if we took 176 million and borrowed that over 30 years, that's the payment schedule. Okay? You add all that together, you go to column K, that is your total debt. Okay? The tax impact just on that debt, so that first line is 14,690,000. That is $3.15 per thousand. Is what someone's paying. All right. You take the current city valuation, and we take the current budget. That is the budget you approved on March 29th. And then you take, as we said, we earmark 5% of the general fund budget for debt, so that's a little over $5 million. And then you're over under that number. If you're under, we're in savings, which is the mode we're in now. You're putting money away. This year you're projected to put like 1.9 million into that fund. Under this scenario, you're 9.6 more than the 5% you have earmarked. So under column Q, the $1.07 is the 5 million, and the $2.08 is the 9.6 million. That equals your $3.15 in column L. So the impact on a $300,000 house, if you had no building aid, no grants, no energy, you built the school with the everything in it, would be a $624 increase in the first year just for debt. Okay?
We're gonna be
So-
loved in this town.
Well, again, this is, I think, only maybe the second time I've shown this, or third, since we've started this Runlet. There will be many, many more. So we just like introducing kids for fun.
And this is with the works, with everything.
Yeah, this is, oh yeah,
And
this
no
is,
state aid.
Yeah.
let it go, all
And
right?
this is helpful to explain to people why we won't probably be going forward this year if the state doesn't
Yeah.
give aid.
Yeah. This would be the extreme green light
Yeah.
version, okay? All right, so that shows you that where it stands, all right? And again, we will continue to work these numbers, and it'll be a lot of work, but it's well worth it, and you'll see how it'll progress over the time we work together to do this. So go to the next sheet. And this is the proposal I want to submit to our state reps to do. So this is all the same columns, but in this case, I split out our portion and the state portion. So again, you go to column A, there's the fiscal year, B is our current debt, C through E, there's nothing, and then F is the cumulative debt there, because there's nothing in between. Now, G and H is where things change. If, at a very high level, if we're entitled to 40% of the project, assuming they covered everything, again, this is all just simplicity. 106 million is our portion, the state portion is 70 million. So this is the bond schedule if we wanted the same payment every year for 30 years. And the H column is the state portion that we would finance, okay, for 5 years. We take 70 million and finance it over 5 years. Column I is if the state said, we're going to appropriate 50 million a year for building aid, which is what they do, up to 50 million. We're entitled to 14 million of that. So you take 14 to offset the portion that they would finance. I mean, when I did the quick math, they could finance all 17 projects if they did 50 million a year for 5 years. And they would take a big swath of this backlog out.
And that's how they used to do it.
Correct, but they did it for 30 years, 25 years, and 20.
True.
Now they're trying to go to an 80-20 and they don't have a funding model to do it.
Yeah.
So compromise and go to 5, and the worst thing you're out is 5 years, not 2041.
Yeah.
That's my solution for them to try.
I mean, there was also it was an
Oh, yeah.
entitlement, so.
Just sign here. You got
so
it.
you.
Yeah.
It sort of.
Like getting a credit card
Got
offer in the
out of
mail and signing
control,
for it.
yeah.
Correct, I agree. So if you look at the bottom line of H and I, would you pay 7.3 million in interest in order to get 70 million from the state? That's the fundamental question. Because you're paying interest on that money that you borrowed.
Could you use the money that you have in your capital reserve fund for that purpose?
Well, yeah, I haven't even touched that yet, and
Well,
I'll
I
show you
mean,
that on
I'm
the
just
screen.
looking at, we could use that money to offset that.
Impact, well, the
Yeah, so the
impact.
impact
Oh,
would be
yeah.
less on the tax
Oh, yeah,
rate.
absolutely.
Cut it.
Well, you're gonna see how I stabilize the rate, and I could probably get it to not more than $200 a year.
Yeah.
And this is, again, I'll work this. This is gonna get even better as I move down, but I'm trying to come up with a solution to where they can come up with something and get a lot of other people in the game, especially as the economy's trying to, it might slow down and interest rates are a little wacky-jacky, no pun intended, but, so we move over to J. That's how much you'll have in your stabilization. I just rounded as of June 30. And then there's your total debt, 11.3 million. So that total tax impact, if you put them up above each other, is $244 versus $3.15. Okay? And then all the other numbers are the same except for column P. Your over-under now is 6.3 million instead of 9.6 million. So your impact is $411 versus $624 in the first year. Okay?
411.
Yeah. So then,
Still very high.
yep,
But that's with no stabilization.
correct. So now
That's with no.
we come to the stabilization party.
Anything.
And we go and we plop. Yeah, I'll do that in a second. I'm just trying to, let me see if I can. So now if I come up here and I kind of do a little breakdown of pasting your stabilization fund in there, okay? I have a couple more years than I need to. Now I'm down to from 411 to 309. But I can rework these numbers however I want. If I want to do 2 million the first year, because I don't want that impact, now I'm down to 282. And again, as this delays a little bit the other 2 years, you're gonna be putting over 2 million a year, so you potentially could be up to 14 million in that fund. So, construction market slows, hopefully interest rates stabilize and then start to come down a little bit. We can get creative with the state and they can create some flexibility to fund more projects. I'm just saying.
I think it's a great message to bring to them.
Well, they got the first message, Jack did that. Actually, today, I was with the director for the division of all this work, Caitlin Davis, and she actually said this today at the meeting, that she wants Jack back because they don't really understand this. But the work that he did with them this past spring was really impactful, so
Well, I'm
I
glad you
think we
said that
should.
because I was thinking it, but I thought,
They want to bring him back, so if we can get them to think about this money over that 5-year plan, rather than trying to do it all over 20,
Well, yeah, they'll absorb everything over 30 years.
30 years, so
Yeah.
they were very positive. I
So,
was,
you know, as you value engineer the project and work things, I think we can get it down to where we're gonna do pretty well.
And this would be construction beginning next year, 2024,
Right now, we're probably looking in July of 25.
July of 25.
That'd be the next biannual.
Yeah.
We did talk.
Unless I think she's asking if they adopted your plan, then theoretically it would be July 24.
Oh, it'll be this July. Yeah, we'll want some incentives. But, yeah, we'd hopefully in the next year and a
now,
half.
you
be
know
able
that
to
if we
do
don't,
something.
nothing happens, Concord goes to number 1 on the list, because we're
Yeah.
fourth. With the only exception would be is if there was another school that had a roof that caved in, or, you know, some calamity. Yeah, and that's happened, by the way, in schools. But we would maintain that number 1 position.
So the other caveat we had a conversation with Amy Clark, and that proposal that we're having for them, I may skip to that and then come back to your construction thing, if that's okay, Matt.
Yep.
I'll go to the future meeting. We talked with Amy Clark, and one of the other things that's on, that is right now passed through the Senate, they believe it'll be fine at the House, is House Bill 452, which is going to change the application process. They said that they would, because the 17 that are in line will be in a good shape, so it's a good thing we did what we did. It will change for the others, but there might be some tweaks for us. So we are asking her to come in July. We talked about June, but she said the nice part about July is we'll know the bills are passed. It's not hypothetical. And then she can tell us how it will impact us and what we can do. And one primary example, we asked her, could the board, we go through our process, we do the schematic design development, construction documents. We already had an approved funding letter. We know we're on the list. We know we're good. Could the board, if it wanted to, take the risk to build and know we'd get the money, assume we would get the money and start building before? And I said, no. Funding has to be approved before you can go. So that puts us at July of 25. But, I mean, we have a nice timeline of 2 years to be ready and do some things. The other thing we've asked her to look at is, can we pre-buy equipment versus instead of a shovel in the ground? So we have emailed her that request because she said it's not specific.
Right.
So for example, you get 18 months in, you're gonna start putting HVAC units in.
Can you buy them?
You know, HMFH just told us about a project they started off as 32 million. When they went to put it in, it was 48 million. Could we pre-buy that stuff? Do what we did when we did the roofs. We rented a warehouse in town and bought all the roofing in one shot because the issues where there were supply shortages, and they were going on roofing jobs and they're sitting 2 or 3 days because it's first come, first served. We bought all the material and with the discount paid for the warehouse, so it was perfect and we got the job done. He and I drove forklifts, so it's fun.
We have pictures.
Yeah. So we're thinking those
played
kind of
moving
things.
trucks.
Can you pre-buy supplies so we can get ahead of the supply chain? And if things stabilize and it's not worth doing, that's fine, but at least we're already trying to think how we're gonna navigate this. And the construction manager, which we'll go over in the timeline, will help facilitate that as well. But, we're definitely gonna need to think outside the box and move in this.
Quick question, can Runlet continue to function until 2025?
We got him.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's archaic, it's not necessarily
More like
dangerous.
2028,
Yeah.
actually.
He's the version of the AED machine for the building. He'll keep it going. And I'll back up now to,
But in reality, his time is demanded over there a lot.
Right.
So just know that, I mean, it's not a cakewalk.
How's the roof?
Well,
It's on top of the building right now.
Do you wanna have
Don't
another meeting?
tell.
I didn't see a supply request for more buckets, so I guess it's stable. But anyway,
All right, so the construction timeline process, this is assuming no building aid and this biennium going to the next. So we took the similar schedule that you've seen before. We added a couple things. We talked a little bit, a little while ago, we'll talk more about site selection and community process. You can see, I don't know if you can blow that up a little
yeah.
bit, but
I can-
by the end of September of this year, we really would need to have that identified. And of course, there'd be a lot of community process developed in the site selection. There'd be a lot of investigative type work that would happen, essentially beginning now up through that time period. We also want to make note of hiring the CM firm. We would like to start that process, very similar to what we did with the architect. Do the qualification, proposal package, and have a CM firm on board by late January of '24. And then the rest of the design, the 5 phases of design fall in underneath that. Just want to point out the star in the middle of the page, the funding announcement, that would be coming in hopefully around November of 2024. Okay? Very similar to the letter we got in 2022. And then the big thing we'd like to point out to you is that construction timeframe. If you want to blow it up a little bit, Jack, you can see July of 2025, you can see that dark red line coming down, the 24 months, and then the second to the last line, it would be August of 27. So you have a 24-month construction window, 2-year, and that bottom right below the August 27 would be if it goes on the existing site, we would have to have a whole phase 2, which is a demo portion to demo the building and then prep that for parking and field space.
Well, Jack will have a middle school to go to.
I just did the years.
All right, it'll be shiny and new, a little more.
Okay. And then I'll move on to the BMS and CHSH VAC. So we mentioned during the budget process that we're trying to use the balance of the ESSER money. Broken ground's all set. That is next summer. We're
As
trying.
in summer of '23?
Yes.
24.
24, you meant.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, summer 24. The issue with that was the lead time was 52 weeks for the electrical, because the electrical needs to be upgraded, and they're having issues with transformers. So, supply chain. They're doing their investigative work, which we should have that report shortly on BMS, and what that would take to do that, and we're trying to coincide both buildings at one time and take care of both of those. Those systems on both schools are 30-plus years old. So we're gonna be coming back to you in June with a proposal to do that, but we're probably gonna have to tie a bond into that. The other thing what we asked them to look at is to start looking at the high school. I think we told you a big number of 20 to 22 million for that, to do that whole school. What we've asked them is to say, what are the worst air handlers? I mean, I think Train lives there. I think there's an office up there.
For them,
I might start getting a tax bill because we have a for-profit company resident up there. But what's the worst ones, and do we try to target those? Because the other concern we have, and this was somewhere when we had the discussion when we replaced the elementary schools, is you build them all at one time. They all age at the same time.
Right.
So, it's manageable, I think, BMS and BGS, but then they add the high school in there and having all this stuff, and then maybe a middle school a couple of years later, everything aging within 2 years. Trying to balance that right now, but there's been just so much deferred upgrades to these buildings that it's all hitting, so.
I would just add, we spent a significant amount this past winter with CHS, with some breakdowns, the cold snaps, just keeping that system going. So those HVAC systems, and we can really prioritize mainly on the west building is where we have an awful lot of attention being paid to keep them going throughout the winter.
Allergies.
That's just a note on that's coming up, and we'll have a whole schedule for that and how we plan on making that move forward with, if you want. We did that. I think that got us through the agenda. Yeah. Any questions about the items that were public session?
That was very quick. Well done.
We try. We wanted to make sure we got the information out and start to formalize some things. So they're the two reasons we need to go into non-public tonight, and it's up to you whether you want to do it here or there. We don't have a plan to come back for anything unless you need to.
I will move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91A3, Section 2I and Section 2D, security, sale, and acquisition of property.
Second.
I think we need a roll call, right? I'll do it.
You want me to do it?
I got it.
Let me get my form up.
Ms. Hastings.
Aye.
Mr. Richards is not on the
not
committees,
on the
right? Mr. Croto.
Aye.
Mr. Weinberg.
Aye.
Mr. Cotton.
Yes.
Ms. Higgins.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And we will not be coming back,
Correct.
so thank you for joining this evening's broadcast.
Oh, is that-
Have a lovely evening.
Have a lovely evening.
You already have one.